Hey, welcome back to my program. Hard to make a lot of sense out of all of the controversy involving Ferguson, Missouri. I've written about it on several occasions on my website. I think I've told listeners to my radio show and written about the fact that I grew up in that area. I went to a St. Louis County high school, Ladue High School, right next to Ferguson. Normandy High School in Ferguson was our big rivals in football and basketball and track meets that I ran. Used to date girls at Normandy High School in Ferguson. Went through that area many times at all hours of the nights and weekends as I was traveling back and forth. Hard to make some sense because of everyone's opinions. How do you determine what is factual and what is not when emotions run so very high? Remember Senator Patrick Monahan, the New York senator that was so eloquent in his commentary? He often said that you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And I think that comes true very succinctly in Ferguson with all of the misinformation out there. Let me give you a few facts that I think have concluded that show pretty conclusively as to what happened in some instances. First of all, I don't think it's fair to compare the Michael Brown case in Ferguson with the Trayvon Martin shooting. Trayvon Martin was a kid, pretty decent kid from everything I've read, who was minding his own business, walking back to his girlfriend's house. There was a struggle. We don't know exactly what happened. This guy, George Zimmerman, who was a thug, he was a thug before it happened, a thug after it happened, got into a scuffle, and Trayvon Martin was shot. That's not at all comparison-wise when you look at what happened to Michael Brown. Michael Brown was the thug in this case. Went to a convenience store. He manhandled the person, beat up on the convenience store operator, stole cigars and other goods from the store, walked out, and went down the street. And the grand jury made some determinations that he shouted profanities at the officer. That was heard by a number of witnesses. He assaulted the officer, refused to stop when the officer confronted him, then charged and grabbed for the officer's gun. Now, we don't know exactly what happened then, but let me tell you what. If you rob a store, swear at the police officer who tells you to stop, charges him and scuffles for his gun, then you're putting yourself in an extremely dangerous situation. No comparison with the Trayvon Martin situation, in my opinion, at all in any way. Second of all, the county prosecutor up there has been blistered because he didn't go ahead and urge the grand jury to indict Michael Brown. Well, you know, if you look at the facts, I think the prosecutor felt like, look, I'm not going to indict the guy myself, but there is so much controversy and tension here. I'm going to give it to the grand jury, and I'm going to give them all the information. How can you complain about a prosecutor that lays all the information out on the table? He's being criticized because most prosecutors will go ahead and give select information to the grand jury, just what they want the grand jury to hear. You know, the old saying that a prosecutor has so much authority when he slants the evidence and picks and chooses the evidence he wants to appear that he can indict a ham sandwich. We've heard that on so many occasions. I think it's pretty refreshing that a prosecutor lays all the information out on the table to let the grand jury decide. He's getting some criticism because prosecutors just like to pick and choose what they want to do, keep the things that might help the defendant away so they get this indictment. So we're accusing the prosecutor of being a fair guy, in my opinion, and I don't think that's a knock at all, quite frankly. And then whatever happened, does it justify the orgy of anarchy that took place in Ferguson with so many businesses being burned to the ground? African-American businesses burned to the ground by African-Americans. Well, Michael Brown's uncle goes out there and says, burn this BITCH down. The guy, in my opinion, ought to be indicted for inciting a riot. So those are facts. That's exactly the facts that the grand jury determined and that witnesses determined. And then the other question that I would raise, and I know a lot about elections. I was the insurance commissioner in Louisiana for a number of years, but here's a city that is 70%, almost 70% African-American. Police force is 94%. And many are asking, why isn't there a balance? And then you've got 6 city council members. Now, 70% black city, 1 is African-American. 1 school board member, African-American, out of 7 members on the school board. The district up there is 75% black, and the school district up that way. And so black citizens, a vast majority of the citizens in Ferguson, are overwhelmingly governed and policed by white appointees or white elected officials. Well, remember the old saying, elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. And one of the things you saw in Ferguson was the turnout in these municipal elections of the African American community was 6%. 94% felt like it wasn't important enough to go and vote. There's a provision under Missouri state law. I know something. I passed the bar up in Missouri since I went to high school up there. So I know the law up that way. There's a provision in the Code of Missouri that municipalities like Ferguson have the legal right to recall all its elected officials. They can be recalled right now. And so, quite frankly, the buck stops with leaders in the African American community to say, look, we've not done a very good job of voting. If 6% of the 6% of the population goes and vote, voter drives and more aggressive leadership up that way can make a huge, huge difference in who is the chief of police and who's the mayor. They got a white Republican mayor in a city that's 70% black. Well, whose fault is that? Is not the white Republican mayor's fault. It's not the whites that ran for office and were elected. And when 74%, rather 94% of African Americans stayed home. So, yes, we've got significant race problems in this country today. That there's no doubt about that. I saw MSNBC's Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough, congressman who I agree with a good bit of the time. And Joe Scarborough said there's two Americas when it comes to the criminal justice system, when it comes to blacks and whites. There's no doubt about that. A black kid doesn't get the same fair shake that a white kid does. That is a fact if you look at the criminal justice system in this country today. A lot of unfairness there. But if you want to bring a change in the fabric of America, quite frankly, when you're dealing with race relations, I don't think the Michael Brown case is the beginning point. This kid was not the poster child for the bringing together the races we want to bring about. A lot of misinformation, a lot of opinions. We need more facts. And I'll be right back.